Welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've set aside a few minutes to spend with us today. In each episode of this podcast, we'll share some of what we're learning in the work we do with kids and families on a daily basis at Daystar Counseling in Nashville, Tennessee. Our goal is to help you care for the kids in your life with a little more understanding, a little more practical help, and a whole lot of hope. So pull up a chair and join us on this journey from our little yellow house to yours.
The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Minnow provides meaningful screen time and shared experiences for families to help you grow in your faith together. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com.
So what exactly does your husband do? This is a question that plagues Heather Whittaker every time someone asks because she never knows how to answer. One day she came up with a phrase that she now uses when asked. He's a hope dealer. And that's about as close to a job description as they can get to. Carlos Whittaker is a People's Choice Award winner, a former recording artist, and a social media maven who currently spends the majority of his time writing books and speaking on stages around the world. It really began when the Whittakers found their family in America's spotlight with appearances on shows like CBS Early Morning, The Today Show, and more when their video, Single Ladies Devastation, went viral. Y'all, you got to watch that. But for Carlos, Heather, and their 3 children, this viral moment was just a snapshot of the bigger picture. We are so thrilled to have Carlos and Heather here together today to talk about being connected parents.
Really, the reason we picked y'all for this connected parenting episode is because you're 2 of the most connected parents I've ever known. Yeah, I think David would say the same. And the way that you love your kids with such tenderness and kindness and ferocity.
Yeah.
Just blows me away
You're
all
making
the time.
me cry straight out the bat. Gosh, you must be a counselor or something.
So we're just so excited for y'all to share who you are and how you raise your kids with the people who are
Thanks
listening.
for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We are so grateful, really grateful to get to be with you all. Can we jump in with some questions?
Let's go.
We can. And we want to say thanks for having us and inviting. And I think we would reciprocate those comments just into the lives of our kids that you guys have had an impact in as well.
I think I would say thank you for being our third parent.
Yeah.
Or third impulse,
Seriously.
because, we are lucky enough to be here in Nashville and being able to resource you guys. And it has been...
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. What do I do here? It's been a gift.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks.
Well, grateful to get to share this time with you all. And we would love to start by asking you, what does intentional parenting mean to you?
Intentional parenting, say I'd never even heard of your books or, heard of the podcast or anything like that. I would just say not parenting on accident. For far too long, parents have parented on accident. It's just kind of like, hey, we've got kids. It's a new day today, so let's make sure that they make it to the end of the day. And although, I get it. I understand that, and I get it. Intentional parenting takes planning. It takes really thinking about every single kid differently, and it takes more work. But I do feel like in the long run, being an intentional parent is going to be just way more beneficial for the child.
Yeah, I think for me, actual intentional parenting is time, and that's what we don't have a lot of these days. You don't have to become a homeschool mom who doesn't work, who, has all the time in the day, but it's that time that you do have with them, that it is focused and you're connecting to them in their world, and it's a focused time. So I think that's intentional parenting in my mind.
Which y'all both do that in spades. I feel like y'all live on this cutting edge in terms of technology and the world and what's out there right now. And so being able to engage with your kids and those things. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that you have this farm. Yeah. And you're not on 100 acres.
Carlos is on, we're on both ends, okay? Because
yes.
But you do have an Instagram account with 15,000 followers
Cut
that follow
that
your
out.
that follow your farm account.
In there.
Yes. It's really like The Matrix meets Little House on the Prairie. I mean, we got things going on.
I pulled you in. I made you swallow the blue pill, and here you are.
Oh,
that's hilarious. Yes.
You have taken this space and you don't have a ton of property. You have a beautiful yard, but you're not on 500 acres and that you've created this farm and your kids are very much on social media when they're allowed to be. And, you know, but at the same time, they're pulling out of that.
Sure.
And having this connected time as a family.
Yeah. It is helpful that Carlos and I are both on different spectrums. Like we are very that opposite attracts type of people. Yeah. So it is helpful for our kids to get a little bit of balance on both sides. But we do love the internet. And yet we also love the unplugging. And for us, honestly, you know what we've found? It's less about the putting our things in a basket when we come home and, you know, having those rules and creating space and time. So for us, one of our favorite family vacations is New York City. Why? Because we can't be on our phones. Like you literally can't be on your phone or else you're going to be walking into somebody. Like you have to put them down. And that's something in our last 3 years, like we've been intentional to take a trip to New York City. Unfortunately, this year may be a little off, but we've been intentional in that because we found like we made it also a trip to go to the mountains and we were on our phones the whole time because we were sitting on our phones, chilling. You know, when we were moving and going, like we couldn't do that. And we actually have some of our favorite moments from choosing to be in a space like that, which doesn't actually make sense because it's a busy city. You would think that to be able to actually connect as a family.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good. Okay, well, let's flip it over. Okay. So what would you say are your biggest challenges, or you can pick one, with being connected as parents?
Man, there's a lot. There's just a lot. You know, and I would say, knowing that there's different stages of parents listening to this right now. You've got your newborn parents probably listening all the way to parents of adults.
Yeah.
I would say that I do think it gets more challenging the older your kids get. So we're sitting here with an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 14-year-old. Now, this is just me, the dad in the Whittaker house. Okay, this is going to be a completely different answer from Heather. But for me, I'm mourning. There's some mourning of watching a shift in the relationships that my kids value most. And right now, it's boyfriends and it's friend groups. And I would say my youngest is still valuing me more than that. But the other two, that's probably the most challenging part for me as far as staying connected. They want to stay connected. I just got a text, you know, our daughters are on a road trip right now. And it's funny when they're home and with me, I do have to fight a lot more, I feel like, to stay connected. But when they're gone, I mean, yesterday, 3 times, Sayana texted me, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing? What have you done today?" Like, there's something about them being gone that I feel like maybe they miss.
A little more tethered.
Yeah, they miss the tether. Whereas if I'm on a trip, they're not asking me those questions, you know? And then my oldest yesterday is like, "Hey, Dad, I miss you. What are we going to do when we get to the lake this weekend?" So what I have to do is just make sure that I capture those moments and really milk them for all they're worth. I'm having a harder time connecting right now just because of their need for friendships, which they need. They need to blossom in those and grow in those. And, you know, they're not my little princesses anymore in their Disney dresses. But,
running
to me and wrapping themselves around my leg.
Ask me the question again.
What is your biggest challenge with connection as a parent?
I think it's that battle of them trying to shut you out or not include you and having to actually enter into that battle to push into them more. Does that make sense? So like for me, it's so easy to be like, oh, she doesn't want to talk about that, so I'm not going to push it. But actually having to try to figure out how to get into that space that she's kind of shut down, or is not that she's blocking me out because she doesn't want me in, but for whatever reason, there's a protection there, and continuing to push until they do, you know, and there was this one situation in September that I had to push into one of our more closed off children. But once I did, now they're an open book. Now they come to me with everything under that umbrella of that situation, you know. And,
but it was uncomfortable.
But it was uncomfortable and it was a little hard. And it was like, I'd rather just ignore that and let them work it out themselves. The harder part is for me to actually to parent, to dig in and to actually push and parent when I would rather just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Well, and I would also add to that, knowing again that there's different spectrums of parents that are listening to this. You've got single parents, you've got grandparents raising kids, you've got all kinds of things. But for us, teamwork wise, we do have different strengths as far as connecting with our kids. And so a lot of times I will see Heather not able to connect in a certain way. And I can kind of come in and be like, if you try this, I promise you. And that may not come naturally to Heather. Same thing with me. Hey, Carlos, like, I know that you're having a hard time with maybe a boy situation. If you...
Babe.
Her eyes roll and her head falls backwards. And she's just like,
Just
if you
relax.
just do it this way. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. So if you have a partner, if you have a friend.
Everyone
if
has
you have,
people,
you have
right?
people
Like
in your life that
everyone
you can.
can.
Yes.
And if you don't have people, then find some people
Yes.
that,
That can
come
help
along.
you.
Counselors can be those
Counselor, yeah,
people.
come along.
We are
Yeah.
those people sometimes. Yes.
That's so great. Okay, well, I kind of want to flip this next question because
I'm
we
scared now.
talked about some of the challenges, and I think you all began speaking to some of the things that help you connect. I feel like we so often get asked in our offices from dads about connecting specifically with girls and from moms about connecting with boys, that it feels a little harder with the opposite gender. Do you all have any thoughts or things you've learned along the way that help in that direction?
Ooh, that's a great
great
question,
Wow,
David.
I wasn't prepared for that.
I
That
know.
one
I
wasn't
know
in
I'm
the
throwing you a
notes.
curveball.
That's funny because I think in our house, Losiah and Carlos, when we got off the airplane, he was all about Carlos. And he still is all about Carlos.
Got off the airplane, meaning that we adopted a child.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Got off the airplane with a new child
Yes,
from
thank
South
you.
Korea when he
Forgot
was 7 months
about
old. Okay, for a little context.
I forgot about that.
Okay.
Did not deliver on a
Yeah,
plane.
yeah.
Talking to you guys. You guys know
Right,
this.
we know.
So that part is very true for us. I do have a harder time trying to connect to Losiah, but then also like he's also home with me and you have to know your kids. You have to know what they love. Like Losiah is a time person. So he is so detailed in his conversations that like he is telling the story and sometimes they're long and really long. And as a mom, I'm sitting there going, okay, Lord, like, let me continue to listen and not just be like, because can so easily happen, right?
Yes.
So that's important and yet also a challenge for me. I think the girls for me, like you said, it is, I'm a girl, I get it. But what's different in our family is our biological two girls. One is completely Carlos and one is completely me. So it's funny because on the girl who like is wired like Carlos, I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, what do we do here? And vice versa.
Yeah, this goes back to the phrase intentional parenting. For me specifically, I'll just go back to my daughters when they were 12, 13 years old. And I started to feel that pull away that, oh my gosh, like I'm not the king, I'm not the hero anymore. What's happening? So I was very intentional. When I saw that they loved the Taylor Swift album, whatever it was, guess what? I learned every word to their favorite song.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is when they start singing it, I'm in the car shouting the words with them and they look at me like, Dad, how do you know all the words to this song? So like you have to be very specific.
Yeah.
What do they love? And guess what? Now you get to love that. And same thing with Losiah, to be honest with you. So Halo was in the hospital last year. This was actually a season where, he didn't get the attention from me or from Heather that he was used to getting. And so I could start to see behavioral issues. I could start to see some things, but he was playing this game Fortnite. I just remember he's always telling me his stories were 30 minutes about his Fortnite game. And so one day I said, you know what? I'm going to download this dumb game. I'm going to put it on my phone. And this little world that we jumped into with our headphones on was an escape from the trauma and the pain that we were in. Yet we were talking to each other. I'm at the hospital. He's at home. We're having conversations. Dad, no, go around that building, this and that. I stepped into his world again. I loved what he loved. Little did I know that I would end up loving the game probably more than he did. And so like I'm on airplanes now playing it by myself.
And both those things, both those examples are simple.
Yes.
Right? Like
Doesn't have to
that's
be
not this
complicated.
big,
It doesn't. Yes.
detailed, it is simple. But you do have to be intentional in looking around, seeing what are they into.
Yeah, what do they love?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it communicates how much you love and value them when you value what they do. Yeah. That's great. Okay. So what would y'all say are 2 or 3 of your kind of guiding principles as parents? These are important things for me to hang on to.
We don't necessarily have guiding principles that are like on a mission statement on the chalkboard. And we actually haven't even talked about
I
these.
know,
So
I'm
hopefully
like-
she's going to agree that this would be a guiding principle. But we parent every kid differently.
Absolutely.
All 3 of our kids
Are so different.
are so different. They all have different rules. And we've told them from a very young age, hey, listen, this is how we're doing it for them. It's going to be different when it's your turn. When I was growing up, when my parents did something for me, it was the exact same thing for my brother. Like that was just kind of the rule. Like this is how we parent all our kids. A guiding principle for us is we definitely are very different with all three of our kids, and they know that. And so there's an expectation that they know things are going to be different. Losiah knows that things are going to be different with technology with him than they were with his sisters. Sayana knows that things are going to be different with her sister than it is with her. And so I think that's one strong guiding principle that we have.
Another thing that I was thinking when you were talking was just the fact that we kind of have this unspoken, no, it is very spoken, rule that like if you come to us with whatever darkness may be there, you're not going to get in trouble. We will parent it, but you're not going to get in trouble. Whereas if you lie and hide and we find it, ooh, watch out. And so there's this kind of freedom and space for our kids to come to us and to share stuff with us that has been kind of honestly, it's a standby principle in our marriage too. We all know that we're going to make mistakes, that we're going to have bad choices, that we're going to do things. But if we can come and be honest about it and walk through it together, I think that's a huge thing for us. And that's something that has blessed our family because we have been able to give our kids tools because they've come to us in dark spaces, tools to get out of it, tools to learn how to, identify lies, to replace those lies with God's truth and healing. And so that has been a beautiful guiding principle for our family.
Yeah. And adding on to that, because it is a staple in our marriage, it's just something that our kids watch and it's something that they see.
We have walked through a hard part in our marriage. And I think that some of the places where our kids are maybe a little bit more mature or able to recognize things is because when we walked that out, we were intentional. I was very intentional to not dog their dad, to not speak negative about their dad, because their dad was a great dad. Yes, he made some. They made some choices that were not good overall as their father, but he still loved them. He still engaged with them. He still, and so I think for me, when you look at somebody as a whole, you can separate, just because my mom doesn't call me on my birthday doesn't mean she's a terrible mother. She may be lacking in this space, and there's many different areas for that, but she actually raised me and loved me and nurtured me, and so I think for Carlos, being able to look at him, yes, he made some poor choices in this marriage context, but he still was there and played and tickled and, was the monster and, the fun tickle monster. Sorry, not the scary monster. I know. Sorry.
The longer this conversation goes, we're going to have a whole other podcast and session.
We'll go into another room in the building.
I said tickle and then I said monster. I meant to reverse it.
We get it. We get it, Heather.
But he still, and so to honor that space of who he was. And so being able to teach our kids to look at a person in a bigger context, in the whole context, instead of just this person is, XYZ, because those are the bad attributes of them. Okay, but if you're looking at that, what is the good attributes of that person? And really being able to look at a bigger picture of a situation is something that I think we really try to do in all of our...
And to see a 14-year-old boy come back from youth group with a relationship issue and without us even having to say anything, to see him unpack, well, gosh... I know that there's probably, I've heard him use the word trauma. There's probably trauma in their life at home. And I'm just, my mouth I'll just have to, lift my jaw from it hanging open because I'm like, this is working. This parenting thing is working, So
I definitely think that that's a huge win in our parenting book is helping our kids see,
what's underneath.
What's underneath.
Yeah.
And you guys have helped a lot with that too.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
What is an intentional practice you've done recently? And this could be in the arena of parenting or it could be outside of it. We talk about, Eugene Peterson says the most important thing about being a parent is being a person. So it could just be in your own life or in your marriage.
I think for Carlos and I, part of the learning process of what kind of made our marriage fall apart was the lack of self-care and the lack of healing in ourselves. So it's been a decade process of learning to hear God's voice, learning to obey God's voice, learning to actually stand in the authority and the call that He has given us to parent, to be healthy, to fight for relationships, to see the bigger picture and really step into that space where you're giving people your best self and being able to say, I am healthy, and giving people that. So I think for me, and I'll also include Carlos, like we have fought for being healthy ourselves. And I think that our kids see that, which then in turn answers your question.
Yeah. I travel a lot, and so I'm not with the kids as much as Heather is. So we have these conversations. I'm going to be home for 72 hours, and I'm going to be gone for 14 days. Like, what can I do while I'm gone? And then what can I do while I'm at home? And then so, again, I think this goes back to my answer earlier about just being super intentional in every phase that your kids are in. I know this week specifically, I took my daughter's boyfriend to the Nashville SC soccer game. She wasn't with me, but she was texting me the whole time at the game, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, how's everything going? Right. And so it was just me spending time with him, knowing that that was being intentional to my daughter. Right. And so sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be just downloading Fortnite because your 12-year-old likes to play it, especially in this season for us in relationship. It is funny with our middle child, TikTok's her thing. So,
she's over that now.
Yeah. She may tell you that, but she's not.
Well, I just think
listen.
She's a full teenager, so it comes and goes in each and every week.
It does. This may sound insignificant, but we send each other TikToks, like funny TikToks. So like this morning I've gotten 3 from her, and then I'll send them to her back, and then that's just a touch point.
Yes.
It's just a touch point. It doesn't seem very significant, but it is to her, and it probably is more to me than it is to her, but it keeps me connected in intentional ways.
This isn't recently. This is actually very long ago in our parenting book, but we used to do these things called family nights. And it was just one night a week. And this is zero pressure to be a Pinterest mom, but I would decorate the house. And it could have been from the dollar store, almost like a little themed birthday, but just getting out of your norm and being intentional. I guess I'm saying this for all those people that are in that younger stage of life, opposed to us in the teenage land. I would throw blankets over the kitchen table and we'd eat underneath the fort, or just shift things a little bit and just make it a night where it's fun and different. And, I think that's where taco nights come in, or just something that is just different. And it's not that hard. It's really not.
One of the family nights, we dressed up as each other.
Yeah, that was fun. And we
act.
had to
And
it
we
was
had to
fun.
act like each other. And, and they were little when we were doing this, but it was just hours of laughter, to watch them mimic us. Where's my phone? Where's the keys? All those things. For my 17-year-old, right now, one of our strongest points of intentional connection have been since she's got a new job. She's working at this new restaurant in Nashville. I know when things slow down during the day for her. And so I'll go and I'll work there with my laptop. And she gets so excited when she sees me because she's just filling guacamole or whatever she does. And she'll come out and she'll sit with me, or I'll go up to the counter and I'll talk with her. And it's a pretty loose environment where we can have these conversations. But she'll text me, Dad, are you coming in today? It's like, wow, she wants this. She's asking for it. So I'm going to make sure that I keep showing up.
We are so thrilled to be partnering with our friends at Minnow to bring back the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. We all know that devices are here to stay. So if you want to make screen time meaningful for your kids, Minnow is for you. A new streaming service designed just for kids. Minnow has over 2,000 episodes of fun and faith-filled shows that have been carefully curated by moms, dads, and church leaders, so it's safe for your family. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com to start your free trial.
So we talk a lot about being a student of your kids, which y'all have already addressed that to some degree. And as much as we talked about how much we love you too, which we do, at the beginning, I think we would be remiss if we didn't say, y'all have 3 amazing kids.
Yes.
And we have both had the privilege of knowing them, and they're just in such different ways.
Yeah.
They are each so gifted. They're so passionate. Just God has created this space and purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel so strongly about that, knowing them. I feel like they each, not only I think is there going to be some beautiful purpose for where they head, but who they are right now. I think they're all living that out. And so if y'all had to say what you're learning from them right now, what would you say that it is?
They're actually each walking through hard things right now. Some harder than the others, but actually they kind of all collide as well, because one hard thing affects another, you know? And their ability to champion each other and their ability to see, like, mom may be focused on one right now. I'm thankful for their grace of, like, mom may be focused on one, but I know she'll be there just as much for me in another season when I'm in a harder season. You know, like, they really are showing me grace in a way that I just am so thankful for, because I really do see how we are focused on one more than the other. And we have these discussions of, we're for you, all of you. And when we have those discussions, they are so kind to us as parents in our faults and in our lacks. And it's just a gift. So it's not necessarily what I'm learning from them, but I am thankful for their kindness.
Yeah. I think I'm learning in 2020, if you're listening to this podcast and it's 2028, let me remind you what happened in 2020.
In case you forgot.
In case you forgot, just the resiliency in each of them. Our 2020 kind of started in November of 2019. We were in Vanderbilt University Hospital with our oldest, trying to figure out what's wrong with her body. And to watch the resiliency of all of our kids, the one that was in the hospital included, but honestly, the other two, all the attention has been focused on the health of our oldest. The resiliency in the other two, I can get a little weepy thinking about it, is just mind-blowing. Just to see how resilient they are, how strong they are, how understanding and compassionate to the situation and the circumstance that they are. And that's what Heather was just talking about a little bit. Gosh, that's nothing that we parented into them. That is who God created them to be. And to watch them step into that has been a beautiful, beautiful thing. They're just so strong. And I do learn a lot from them when it comes to that, because a lot of times I'm thinking, where did they get this from? Not me. It's all Heather. But the other one, like, we adopted. So he got it from us and parenting him, but there's some strength in his bloodlines that we don't know about as well. And so it's just a beautiful thing. I'm just learning how to be resilient, how to get back up. I love seeing that in them.
Yeah, I love that, because I think as our culture has almost made life too easy sometimes for our kids, and we haven't taught them how to fight. We haven't taught them how to get back up. We haven't taught them how to build resilience. And so I think, walking in this season, not trying to shield them from it, but teaching them how to get back up, teaching them how to still have peace in the trauma, still have joy in the trauma. And they've taught us by showing us that it's possible. It's possible to walk through hard things and not have it take you out.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you've taught them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That mirrored sense. I feel like as y'all are talking, I mean, two of the things that stand out to me the most about your parenting and what you're saying, which there's so much. I mean, I feel like I want there to be word by word notes of everything you've said, but the two things that stand out is there's such a knowingness of your kids. Like, you just know your kids.
Yes.
I mean, you know their struggles, but you know their triumphs, and you know what they're passionate. I mean, all those things. And there is this pervasive sense of grace.
Yeah.
That you all are offering them over and over and showing them in light of the gospel and who God is. And then I love that you talked about how they're bringing that back to you too. It just feels like such themes. Yeah.
I would say, yes and amen. You know?
I was thinking the exact same thing. It's amazing you said that, and that you're living it. Like, I think we talk about it so much with kids, but your kids are sitting front row to that. Like, here's real life, real marriage.
Yeah.
The real journey of being a family, and grace all over that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
No wonder your kids are who they are. Well, and we're going to move now from substantive to silly to end this time.
Okay.
All right.
And you all mentioning in the middle of our conversation taco night at one point, guacamole in another, just confirms what we've already known. You're our people.
Yes.
And so we want to end by knowing your favorite kind of taco.
Well, okay, so you said substantive to silly, but this is actually deeper than the other conversations, because this is life-changing. And okay, so here's the deal. And
you're
gonna hear
two really opinionated
Yeah.
people.
So listen,
cannot wait.
We come from the promised land. We come
God's
from
country.
California. We love Tennessee.
Sure do.
We love Nashville. But even the Mexicans in Tennessee have forgotten
Yes.
how to cook a taco.
Yes.
Let me preface this by saying I am Mexican. So before you email Daystar or whatever, like, this is me talking about my people. And I am here to tell you that there are places in Nashville that you can find a good replica of a taco.
Sure.
But I would say the greatest taco I've ever had has to come from Southern California, probably from a man on a sidewalk, not in a taco truck per se, just a grill on a sidewalk with two very small, has to be corn tortillas. Okay. And they have to be oiled just right with carne asada in them. If you've never done this, you need to go to Long Beach, go to 102nd Avenue. And there's a man right in front of the pet store that probably cooks the best tacos
so excited
ever.
about this.
And the only reason I say this is last
making it
year
up?
is Heather thinks I'm making this up because she wasn't with me. But I spoke at an event last year. I Googled best taco or Yelp best taco in Long Beach, and everyone was saying in front of this pet store on 102nd Avenue. I went to it. It was the greatest taco I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
Okay, Heather.
I wish y'all could see your face right now.
I am very picky as well, and I do think a good street carne asada taco is delicious. But the best taco I've ever had in my entire life is a place in Santa Barbara. They were making the corn tortillas. Carlos is 100% right on that.
Yep. Can't be far
right
off.
there in the shop. And then they had a roasted poblano on it.
Was I with you?
Yes, stuffed with Monterey Jack cheese. And here's the problem.
Wow.
Texas people, I love you. But you can't use a Velveeta type of cheese in your Mexican food. It needs to be Monterey Jack cheese if you're going to have some sort of like
Melted.
enchilada or melted or something like that. But then, so what they did is they melted the Monterey Jack cheese with the poblano and the corn tortilla. And it was simple and like dreamboat land.
Yeah.
Also, I love a good chorizo, but a chorizo is I'm very particular with my chorizo. Whole Foods has a really good chorizo. If anybody out there would like to try a real chorizo.
Yeah.
With egg and potato, breakfast taco, that's delicious. I also love anything like pork with chili verde. That's delicious. And
I'm so hungry.
I really,
This is so good.
I like to make tacos.
Yeah,
real
she
tacos.
does. She makes great. And if you want the best taco in Nashville,
If you
just
want
have to come to our
put
house.
ground beef in a taco, you're not making tacos.
Can we come to your house for our next
Yes,
conversation?
please.
Okay.
Please.
Yes.
You two have given us so much.
I know.
To everyone listening, you're welcome.
Stop.
I mean it.
We
Can
can
I
do a
just-
whole podcast on tacos if you want next
Yeah.
time.
That
And
be
we would love that.
fun.
And can we just say, read everything written by these folks,
Yes.
follow them.
Yes.
Clearly, you can see we trust their voices.
We do.
You can too.
Immensely. And where can they find you and follow you and all
Yeah,
those
Heather, where
things?
can they find you and follow you?
I can say. Whit Farm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Whit Farm with two T's, WHITTFARM.
Yes.
It's
That's
all-
it.
it's
and
all
it's about
things.
farming. You're not going to get much else on there.
Yeah, but every once in a while you get
Every
a little
once in a
passionate.
while. I get
Yeah.
a little,
Yeah, so follow Heather. Trust me, the only reason people follow me was to get a hold of my wife. So I see that and I acknowledge that. But if you want to hang out with me, Loswhit, LOSWHIT on Instagram. And then I've got books and things that you can
That
there's
are
links on my
amazing.
Instagram
That are incredible.
as well. So I like to tell stories.
Y'all,
That's
thank
us.
you.
That's
We're
it.
so
Thank you
grateful
so
for
much.
you.
Thank you guys. We love you guys with everything. So
Y'all
thanks for having
too.
us.
Right back at you. The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Minnow helps you make screen time meaningful for your family with shows kids love and values parents trust. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com.
It's our joy to bring the experience and insight we gain through our work beyond the walls of the Daystar House. Join us next time for more help and hope as you continue your journey of raising boys and girls.